Hello, Mr. Ram Krishna. Basically, I discussing one topic that is city creation. City creation basically I discussing one topic that is this creation. One of the person told that basically we want to separate the world basically, and they separated the world. But the France group telling the few country told that basically we want to track basically how basically things are basically. We want to track that land basically. From map basically we can track basically that this is the map and that is the map. This that is and everything basically. So France group told that basically we have collected the data. Now basically the data basically which is collected, that is sea water basically. So he told that basically we have this diagram basically which Sunil Arnair basically is has created, that basically we can use basically. That is the sequence basically. Sea water is this basically. So sea water basically, whenever the earthquake is going to happen basically, the near sea land basically are 100% going to affect. So sea land basically is not supposed to, sea water land basically is not supposed to spread the water across the city basically. For that also basically some metrics are basically done basically. So the matrix also that what is the that matrix basically, assume that there are some 1 lakh matrix basically designed in the near around sea areas basically, and there are around 80,000 cities basically near around sea water basically. So that city basically we are telling that basically this is the city basically, like this basically things are basically there basically. So like these things are basically there. So that city also basically we tracked basically. That city also basically we tracked. That city also basically we have tracked. So like this France city of there are around 80,000 cities basically, which are near around sea water basically, which are around near around sea waters. Near around sea water. So that city also basically we tracked, and we tracked that basically there are around 1 lakh matrix near that city. That also basically we tracked. Then basically one of the person told that yeah, each and every matrix basically in the, for example 1 lakh matrix are there basically. So 1 lakh people are basically created of that matrix basically. So to it should be remember that basically the human resource basically creates it basically. 1 lakh matrix are there, and 1 lakh matrix equal to 1 lakh human resource. So just see how they keeps the remember basically. The world creator basically has created very dangerous world basically. That is very dangerous world he has created. He told the human resource group basically. Here basically the human resource group comes into the picture basically. So 1 lakh matrix equal to 1 lakh resource basically. And that 1 lakh resource basically have his group. Because matrix only basically one person basically can't create. From that his one person's energy basically it can't create the matrix now basically. 1 lakh matrix is there. So that 1 lakh only one person basically can't create his matrix. So its group is basically there. So 1 lakh matrix is there, and 1 lakh matrix basically is controlling the sea water. And that 1 lakh matrix which is created, there on the base of to remember basically that matrix is there near the city basically. They have created 1 lakh resources basically. They means the group who created the world basically. So that is this land basically who actually divided the land basically. So 1 lakh resources are created, and that resource are equal to matrix. That is 1 lakh matrix basically. So that matrix is created. So from that basically they are remembering the, so France, that was France basically. The France told that basically भाई हमने तो we have created. He actually told in हिंदी basically we have मतलब हमने एक बनाया है 1 lakh resources. So 1 lakh resource he created, so that basically it can be remembered basically. In future basically 1 lakh resources 1 lakh matrix basically it's very difficult to remember basically. So they told that basically we have created the 1 lakh resources, and 1 lakh resources are equal to 1 lakh matrix basically. And that if the matrix is very dangerous basically, the Bollywood group also basically created one matrix, one resource basically for that matrix basically. So chain basically see 1 lakh matrix, 1 lakh resources are created, and that 1 lakh resources are basically connected with the Bollywood group. So that is the Bollywood group basically are continuously watching that particular 1 lakh resources, and they are basically creating the serials, Bollywoods, and that 1 lakh resources. That means Bollywood who are displaying the each and everything basically in front of the world, they are real data. They are basically real data. So one of the person told that how basically Bollywood are basically displaying each and everything basically. That was also basically one of the question basically. That is also basically one of the question basically. So he told that basically that is the thing basically, that the writers are there, directors are there basically, each and every stuff basically are there, and we have to take care of ourselves also basically. Bollywood group is there basically. So first basically we will take care of ourselves, and then basically we will start the work basically. So like this basically things are basically there. So like this basically they told that 1 lakh matrix near. So France basically, see the France plan basically, because he have the control of entire earthquake system basically. So France started doing the displaying the plan in front of the world basically. This is actually one discussion, and that discussion basically is connected with the private internet channel basically, that basically we have already discussed. So like this basically he told that 1 lakh the sea resource basic. Sea resource means sea is there, but sea land is there. Near sea land basically there are around 1 lakh cities, and 1 lakh cities are basically connected with the, assume that basically 1 lakh cities. In previous video basically I had told some, but some other data basically. Here basically I am changing that data. 1 lakh city and 1 lakh basically metrics are basically there, and 1 lakh metrics are connected to 1 lakh resource, and 1 lakh resource are connected with the Bollywood group basically. 1 lakh resources are connected to the Bollywood group basically. So like this basically things are connected. So France basically is displaying his plan basically. So you can just imagine how they displays the plan basically. So it's not easy to create the Bollywood also basically. So Bollywood group basically displays each and every real data basically. So one of the person told the Bollywood the fake data yaar, everything is fake, but that is real basically. So 1 lakh metrics like this basically in this world, France group told that basically there are around 1 crore metrics which is controlling the each and every objects. So for that basically resources are created, and that resources are basically lively connected with the Bollywood industry and Hollywood industry, because India is country is there, and that is they are basically controlling the Bollywood, and Hollywood groups are basically controlling the America, Europe, like this basically resources are basically there. They are basically highly resources basically. Hollywood groups are very high resources basically, because they are basically, the Hollywood are basically getting money in dollar, like this basically, euro, pound basically, then dirham basically, like this basically they are getting the money. So their expenses are also basically up to that level basically. So like this basically things are basically there. So they told that basically this is the France plan basically. So few plans basically France group told that basically we have discussed basically. So for to collect this basically data we require some certain level of plans basically, but we can't ignore this thing basically which Sunil Nair basically has told basically, because one of the person told that this might be correct also basically. So the land basically are separated. 3 lakh people basically are going to that land basically, and they are going to shift to that particular land, and the land is going to separate just within millisecond, 2 or 3 millisecond the land is going to separate. Rest of land basically which is other than that particular land, that land will get end, each and every objects will get end. Then basically the just within 10 or 20 seconds this is going to happen. 10 or 20 millisecond basically, land separated, world ended, just within 2 to 3 seconds basically, the 2 to 3 millisecond the entire 900 crore people basically will become powder, and then basically the whole world basically will become powder. Like this, just taking as an example, in natural disaster basically lots of bad things also basically happens. So like this basically just within 10 millisecond the world will end, and after that 12 second basically the land will get the land will get merge also basically with the whole world basically, because they have to do the merge basically, otherwise the universe matrix will get chained basically, that how basically the land basically of earth land basically got separated basically, so that basically will get tracked basically, that's why. So within just 20 to 21 millisecond basically they have to do this everything activity basically. So they have done this, and then like this basically the France started like this. France told us basically yes basically we have to do this. So like this basically the France started doing the having their plan basically. In this basically 1 lakh matrix are there basically near the city, who are basically controlling the sea water basically, so that the sea water is not supposed to enter into the sea. So for that 1 lakh matrix resources are created for that, so that basically it can be remembered. Then basically the Bollywood groups are created. Like this basically the France started displaying his plan. So in next video basically we are going to see a little bit more about this topic.